The galaxy was quiet, too quiet. And then the silence was broken by shadows crossing the stars. The new empire arrived in great numbers, their ships sharp like blades and their banners burning with pride. They called themselves Alpha, the first, the strongest, the rulers of all wherever they passed. Civilizations bent their knees or were erased. It did not matter if they were peaceful or proud. The Alphas crushed them all. Their ships were dark giants, armed with weapons that could melt moons. They swept through trade routes and hunting grounds like storms. Smaller empires whispered in fear. The old powers stayed hidden, and the galaxy began to believe that no one could stop the Alphas. Planets surrendered without a fight. Fleets disbanded before a battle, because everyone thought resistance was useless. The Alphas declared their will in every broadcast. They said all must serve, all must obey. There was no choice. They were the beginning and the end. Their commanders laughed as entire races offered tribute, as cities handed over their riches, as leaders begged for mercy. They believed themselves untouchable. But far away, on the edges of Terran space, there was silence. Humans listened, they watched. They did not speak. They did not send ambassadors. The Alphas thought humans were nothing, just another race to crush later, and so they ignored them. Their mistake was small at first, but it would cost them everything. The humans remembered history on Earth. Empires had risen and fallen. Conquerors had come and gone. Humanity had always resisted, had always adapted. And deep within hidden shipyards, humanity had prepared for a day like this. War machines slept under rock and steel. Silent titans waiting for the right moment. Commanders in black uniforms walked among them, touching cold armor and whispering promises of vengeance. But the galaxy did not know this. The galaxy thought humanity weak. The galaxy thought humanity would bow like all the others. Even the Alphas laughed at the idea of humans standing against them. They called themselves Alpha because they believed no one could challenge them. They thought they were the first and the last. The first real test came when the Alphas turned their eyes on a human colony. It was not Earth, it was not Mars. It was a small world on the border. Green fields, shining cities, families who looked at the stars without fear. They did not know what was coming. The Alphas arrived in force, dozens of warships surrounding the planet, their voices booming through every screen, surrender or be destroyed. The people were afraid, but humanity had planned for this. Fleets were already in position. Hidden in the darkness, silent as stone, the order was given. But for now they did not strike. They waited. They wanted to see the arrogance of the Alphas with their own eyes. The Alphas began their show of power. They fired warning shots, burning forests, destroying satellites, and laughing at the fear they created. The galaxy watched this moment, expecting humans to kneel like everyone else. But deep within the command ship of the Terran defense, an admiral sat with cold eyes. He said only one thing: let them come closer. The audience of the galaxy leaned forward, though they did not know it yet. Something different was about to happen. This was not another empire breaking. This was not another race surrendering. Humanity was waiting, and humanity had teeth sharper than anyone could imagine. The Alphas thought themselves first. They thought themselves supreme, but they had never faced Earth's children, and they had never understood the history of struggle written in human blood. The fleets of the Alphas burned brighter than suns, but in the silence of space, hidden shadows moved. Human warships awoke. Reactors roared. Steel groaned, and in that moment the true story began. The galaxy had seen the rise of many empires, but it had never seen what was about to come. The Alphas, proud and arrogant, were about to learn that the name Alpha meant nothing in front of humanity. The darkness around the colony was breaking. Lights flickered in the void, and war machines older than the Alpha Empire itself powered up. The civilians on the colony did not know what waited in the dark, but they saw strange movements in the sky, flashes that did not belong to the invaders. The Alphas continued their threats, their commanders boasting of how fast they would erase the humans. They did not see the trap closing. They did not see the hidden strength waking. Humanity had been silent, patient, but the silence was ending. The Alphas called themselves Alpha, but they were about to face the true predators of the galaxy, the Terrans who had fought each other for centuries, the Terrans who had survived endless wars, the Terrans who had built weapons not for show, but for survival. The colony held its breath. The galaxy held its breath. The Alphas laughed. And then in the deep void, the first human dreadnought turned its guns. Its hull gleamed like black stone, its weapons locked on target. The moment of silence stretched. The universe itself seemed to wait. The arrival of the Alphas was meant to mark the beginning of their eternal rule. But instead, it would be remembered as the moment their end began, because in that hour, humanity was ready to step out of the shadows, and when humans step into war, no enemy can stand for long. The colony world still trembled after the Alpha fleet surrounded it. Their threat still echoed through the airwaves. "Surrender or die," the Alphas roared, their voices filled with arrogance, their warships circling like predators. Yet somewhere beyond the colony's skies, shadows stirred. Humanity's answer was not spoken with words, but with machines built for war. Deep within the belt of broken asteroids that drifted around the colony, there were hidden caverns carved by human hands. In those caverns, the pride of Earth slept, colossal shapes wrapped in darkness, their metal bones humming with power. They were dreadnoughts, battleships, carriers, and cruisers, humanity's hidden arsenal. For years they had been constructed in silence, away from the eyes of alien empires, away from the councils that believed humans were harmless. The galaxy had always underestimated humanity. The other races saw them as traitors, explorers, dreamers. They believed humans were too young, too fragile, too new to the stars to pose a threat, and the humans allowed them to believe it. It was a mask, a lie told with silence, because while the galaxy watched the surface, the Terran Defense Force prepared beneath it. On the bridge of one hidden station, Admiral Marcus Hale stood before a wide viewport. His eyes locked on the flashing lights of the Alpha fleet. His officers waited for orders, the air thick with tension. Some were nervous, some eager, but all were ready. Hale's voice was calm, steady, a whisper of steel. He said, "Today the Alphas will learn who we are." One by one, the silent titans awoke. Reactors flared to life. Glowing like caged suns, engines rumbled, their power shaking rock and steel. Crews rushed through narrow corridors, strapping into their stations. Weapons officers armed railguns, missile bays opened like jaws. Fighter pilots slid into cockpits, their hands trembling with anticipation in the blackness. The ships began to move, shadows no more. The first to rise from the asteroid shadows was the dreadnought Invictus, its hull layered in black armor, its size dwarfing the Alpha cruisers. It moved like a mountain through the void, silent but unstoppable. Behind it followed the carrier Atlas, its bays holding swarms of fighter craft, wings of steel ready to be unleashed. More ships followed, cruisers, destroyers, frigates, each one bearing the Terran insignia. The humans did not rush to attack. They watched, they studied, they measured the arrogance of the Alphas. The enemy ships glided without caution, broadcasting threats and laughter, their commanders completely blind to the danger around them. They believed victory was already theirs. They did not know they were surrounded. Inside the colony, the people huddled in shelters. Watching the skies, they saw the Alpha ships, but not the human fleet hidden beyond. Yet whispers spread among them, rumors that Earth had prepared for this day. Rumors that humanity had weapons the galaxy had never seen. Hope flickered in the hearts of the colonists, fragile but growing. The order finally came, not with fire, not with fury, but with a single calm sentence from Admiral Hale. "Unveil the arsenal," and then the darkness broke. Dozens of human warships decloaked, engines burning bright, their silhouettes rising against the stars. The Alphas froze for the first time, their laughter cut short. Their commanders stared at the screens, seeing the impossible, a fleet larger than anything they expected. Dreadnoughts, carriers, cruisers, all armed and aimed directly at them. The Alphas scrambled, their arrogance shaken, but they were still confident. They had crushed hundreds of races. They had ended civilizations. Why would humans be different? Their fleet commander gave the order to fire. Energy beams lanced toward the colony, burning through the void. And then humanity showed its teeth. Railguns fired, the soundless thunder of hypervelocity rounds tearing through Alpha shields. Missiles screamed into the darkness, splitting into clouds of warheads that struck with blinding light. Fighters poured out of carriers in disciplined wings, weaving through Alpha formations like a storm of steel. The first Alpha cruiser exploded, its hull splitting apart in a rain of fire. The galaxy watched in shock as a race once thought weak drew first blood. Communications across the sector lit up. Reports flying from ship to ship. Humans were not weak. Humans were not prey. They were predators, and they had been preparing for years. But humanity was not reckless. Every strike was planned, every movement calculated. Hale's voice echoed across the command channels. Calm, firm, every ship moved as if part of one great machine. The Alpha fleet fought back with rage. their beams carving into space, destroying a human frigate. But for every ship humanity lost, 3 Alphas burned. In the shadows of the battle, a secret stirred. Deeper still within the asteroid fields, there were weapons yet to be revealed. Titans greater than even the dreadnoughts. Engines the size of mountains. Weapons capable of ending worlds. Humanity's final card, but Hale did not play it yet. Not while the Alphas still thought they could win. The battle raged on. The colony below shook with every blast. Families clutched one another, listening to the distant echoes of war in the skies. And yet their fear was mixed with pride. They were not bowing. They were not surrendering. Their people were fighting back. And as the Invictus carved through another Alpha battleship, as fighters from the Atlas danced between enemy fire, as human destroyers unleashed storms of missiles, the truth began to spread across the galaxy. Whispers turning into thunder. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not harmless. Humanity was dangerous. The Alphas had called themselves the first, the strongest, the rulers of all, but in that moment, as their fleets cracked and burned before humanity's hidden arsenal, they realized a truth that chilled them to the core. Maybe humans were not just another race, maybe humans were something greater, something unstoppable, and Admiral Hale, watching the battle unfold, knew this was only the beginning. The true arsenal of Earth had not yet been revealed. The galaxy had seen only a glimpse. The storm was coming, and it would erase the name Alpha forever. The void around the colony burned with light. Broken ships drifted in silence. Pieces of Alpha cruisers spun through the dark like shattered glass. The humans had struck first, and the galaxy watched in disbelief. No one had ever dared to fight the Alphas. No one had ever spilled their blood. But now the proud conquerors were bleeding. On the bridge of the Alpha flagship, Commander Rylos slammed a clawed fist into the console. His voice shook with rage. Insignificant creatures, they dare to resist. They dare to wound us. His officers looked nervous, their eyes darting to the burning wrecks of their fleet. The arrogance that once filled the ship had turned to unease. But Rylos was not ready to retreat. Not yet. He barked orders. Their warships surged forward. Beams of energy lanced across the void. Burning through the hull of a Terran destroyer, the humans felt the loss. The screams of their dying crew echoed through the comms. But the human fleet did not break. Admiral Marcus Hale stood on the Invictus, calm as the storm raged, his voice steady over the channels. Hold formation, strike back with precision, make them bleed again, and the Terran fleet obeyed. Railguns thundered, missiles cut across the stars. Human fighters swarmed like angry hornets, their wings weaving patterns the Alpha pilots could not match. The first great clash became a storm. Explosions ripped the darkness apart, and the colony below trembled. Civilians huddled together in bunkers. Hearing the distant thunder of weapons above, they prayed. They feared, but they also felt something they had not expected. Pride. Their people were fighting back against monsters who had enslaved whole worlds, and for the first time, the Alphas were not laughing. Human tactics cut deep. Hale's ships moved like chess pieces across the board. While the Alphas relied on brute strength, humans used guile, stealth, and timing. An Alpha battleship was lured into the path of a hidden missile salvo. Its shields collapsed, its core detonated, and the blast lit the asteroid belt in fire. In the cockpit of a human fighter, Lieutenant Sarah Vance gritted her teeth. Her craft skimmed the surface of an Alpha cruiser. Railfire chasing her, she twisted, spun, and released her payload. The explosion tore a hole in the cruiser's hull. Her wingmen cheered over the comms. Humans were not prey. They were predators, and every pilot screamed their defiance into the stars. The Alphas, furious and humiliated, unleashed their secret weapon. From the belly of their flagship came a ship within a ship, a world-breaker frigate, bristling with energy cannons designed to shatter planets. Its presence sent waves of fear through the galaxy. Rylos sneered as he watched it rise. Now they will know what Alpha means. But Hale had expected this. His intelligence reports had long warned of Alpha superweapons. He gave no order to retreat. Instead, he whispered, "Release the Phantoms." And from the shadow of the Atlas carrier came black-winged ships, stealth fighters coated in reactive armor. Invisible to most scans, they streaked forward like ghosts, silent and merciless. The Worldbreaker fired its first shot. A beam of energy brighter than a star, it cut across the battlefield, grazing the colony's atmosphere. Cities shook, oceans boiled, the colonists screamed, and yet the planet still stood because Hale had prepared. The Phantoms had already reached the Worldbreaker, slipping beneath its shields, planting explosives across its spine. When the bombs detonated, the galaxy gasped. The Alpha superweapon cracked open. Its glowing heart spilled into space, fire devoured it. The Alphas screamed in horror as one of their greatest weapons was destroyed by the humans they had mocked as weak. The tide of the battle turned. Human morale soared. Every ship pushed forward. Every fighter screamed into the fray. The Invictus loomed like a mountain, its railguns pounding through another Alpha battleship. The Atlas unleashed wave after wave of fighters, and the Alpha fleet, once proud and mighty, staggered under the weight of human fury. But the cost was heavy. The Terran destroyer Courageous split apart. Its crew lost, another cruiser burned in silence, their sacrifice carved into the memory of every survivor. Hale stood silent for a moment, then his voice returned to the fleet, cold and fierce. Their deaths will not be wasted. Strike harder, and the humans struck harder. The Alphas fought with desperation, their arrogance shattered, their voices filled with fear. They had never lost before. They had never faced an enemy who refused to kneel. Now they were losing ships, commanders, weapons. Their illusion of invincibility. The galaxy watched, silent and stunned. Messages spread across worlds. The Alphas were not gods, they were not eternal. They were bleeding, they were mortal. And the ones who made them bleed were humans in the end. The battlefield was littered with wreckage. Glowing fires drifted through the void. The Alphas retreated, their flagship limping away. Commander Rilo snarling but silent. For the first time in Alpha history, retreat was ordered. Humanity had drawn first blood on the colony below. The people emerged from shelters looking to the sky. They saw the wreckage of alien ships burning like falling stars, and they cheered. They cheered with tears in their eyes. Because they had survived, because humanity had not surrendered. Admiral Hale stood at the viewport of the Invictus, his face cold but his heart burning. This was only the beginning. The Alphas had been wounded, but not yet destroyed. They would return with fury, with armies, with more weapons, but humanity was ready. Humanity had revealed its arsenal. Humanity had tasted victory, and the galaxy would never forget the day the humans spilled the first Alpha blood. The battlefield drifted in silence after the first clash. Wreckage of Alpha warships floated like broken bones across the void. Fires flickered against the black canvas of space. The colony below was scarred but alive, and humanity had done what no one thought possible. They had forced the Alphas to retreat, but Admiral Marcus Hale knew this was not victory, not yet. The Alphas were arrogant, but they were not fools. They would return, and they would return with fury. Far beyond the colony, deep within the Terran core, a signal pulsed through secret channels. Encrypted and ancient, it carried one simple command: "Awaken the dreadnoughts." Those words traveled faster than light, reaching hidden dockyards orbiting dead stars, cavernous shipyards carved into moons, black stations no outsider had ever seen. There, in silence, the giants slept, machines older than the war itself. Dreadnought-class vessels, each one the size of a small city, armor thicker than mountains, guns that could tear planets apart. For decades they had waited, their existence known only to the highest ranks of Terran command. Humanity had built them not to rule, but to survive, and now their time had come. The first to awaken was the Leviathan. Its engines roared to life, shaking its dock apart, its hull black and scarred from ancient tests. When its lights flared, the engineers watching it whispered in awe, as if a god had opened its eyes. Then came the Titan, the Colossus, the Aegis, and more. Dreadnought after dreadnought rising from their tombs. The galaxy had seen Alpha world breakers, terrible ships that could shatter continents. But the dreadnoughts were different. They were built not just for destruction, but for endurance, for war without end. They carried enough firepower to erase fleets, and enough armor to outlast sieges. They were humanity's answer to arrogance. Back at the colony, repairs were underway. Civilians buried their dead, but their hearts beat with pride. They had seen human ships fight and win. Hope replaced fear. Children whispered about the Invictus, the black mountain that had stood against the Alpha fleet. Yet even as they celebrated, sensors screamed warnings. The Alphas had returned. This time in greater numbers, dozens of Alpha warships warped into the system, sleek, curved, shimmering with deadly energy. Their weapons glowed like captured suns, and at their center was a world breaker, larger than the one destroyed before. Its cannons already charged. The galaxy held its breath. The humans had won a battle. But could they win a war? Admiral Hale stood on the Invictus, his crew tense, his face calm. He had been waiting for this moment. He opened a secure channel, whispered a single word, "Now," and the stars themselves seemed to shift. From the dark came shadows, massive shapes gliding into the light. One by one, the dreadnoughts arrived, their hulls glowing with awakening power, their guns tracking targets before a shot was even fired. The Leviathan led the line, followed by the Titan and then the others, until the sky above the colony was filled with steel giants. The Alphas froze for the first time in their history. Their commanders hesitated, their arrogance cracked, their fleet was mighty. But what stood before them was something they had never seen. Warships that dwarfed their cruisers, dreadnoughts that made their worldbreaker look small. Humanity had revealed its hidden hand, and it was terrifying fire, Hale whispered, and the dreadnoughts obeyed. The Leviathan unleashed a broadside. Railgun rounds the size of houses tore through Alpha shields, smashing into hulls and shattering them apart. The Titan fired a lance of plasma that melted a battleship in half. The Colossus unleashed a storm of missiles, hundreds at once, weaving into Alpha formations and detonating in blinding light. The battlefield erupted into chaos. The Alphas fought back. Beams of energy sliced across the void, striking against dreadnought armor. Sparks and fire spread. A cruiser burned, but the dreadnoughts did not fall. They absorbed the blows, their shields flared, their guns roared again. They were not ships, they were fortresses, and they were unstoppable. From the Atlas carrier, new fighter wings launched, weaving through Alpha formations, distracting their heavy guns while the dreadnoughts pressed forward. Every move was planned. Every strike was deliberate. Hale's voice echoed across the comms. Do not give them space. Drive them back. On the Alpha flagship, Commander Rylos watched in horror. His claws dug into the console. He had never feared another fleet, but now his chest tightened. His voice broke as he shouted for his ships to hold the line. But the line was breaking. The humans were advancing, and nothing could stop them. One by one, Alpha ships exploded, their wrecks tumbling into the void. The World Breaker tried to unleash its terrible weapon, but the Aegis dreadnought intercepted, its shields absorbing the beam. Holding firm until the Invictus cut across with a railgun strike that split the World Breaker's spine, it died in silence, consumed by fire. The colony below watched in awe. Children pointed to the sky. Seeing dreadnoughts blot out the stars, their people had built monsters to fight monsters, and they were winning. The galaxy beyond whispered in disbelief. Messages spread like wildfire. Humans had dreadnoughts. Humans had giants that even the Alphas feared. By the battle's end, the Alpha fleet was shattered. Survivors scattered into the dark. Commander Rylos fled once more, his pride burned to ashes. He vowed revenge, but inside he felt fear. The first true fear his kind had ever known. And on the bridge of the Invictus, Admiral Hale stood silent, watching the fires fade. He knew this was not the end. The Alphas would come back stronger, with more fleets, with more rage, but now the balance had shifted. The galaxy had seen the dreadnoughts awake, and nothing would ever be the same again. The battlefield near the colony had been won, but Admiral Marcus Hale knew it was only the beginning. The Alphas had tasted defeat, and their pride would not let them rest. In the deep silence of space, messages spread like fire. Every empire, every station, every smuggler's ship whispered the same words. The humans had dreadnoughts far away. Across the fractured spiral of the galaxy, the Alpha High Command seethed. They could not accept humiliation. They could not accept that their so-called prey had wounded them. Entire fleets were summoned. War factories burned day and night, and in secret a new monster was prepared. A world breaker far larger than any seen before. Armed with cannons that drank stars and armor forged from stolen worlds, they would make an example of humanity. The chosen battlefield was cruel and fitting. A dying star, its surface cracked and burning, waves of radiation spilling into the void, the perfect place for the largest fleet clash in living memory. Both sides knew the risks. Shields would flicker, hulls would be tested, but the outcome of this war would be decided there. Among the bones of a dying sun, Admiral Hale stood on the bridge of the Invictus, his face lit by the glow of battle maps. Around him the crew moved with steady precision. They knew the cost, they knew the danger, but no one faltered. The Leviathan, the Titan, the Aegis, and the Colossus formed a wall of steel beside the Invictus. Behind them, carriers and cruisers filled the dark. It was humanity's greatest fleet, assembled not for show but for survival. The star burned like a wound in the sky, and then the Alphas came. They arrived in waves, thousands of warships, sleek, cruel, and sharp, their banners glowing with arrogance, and at their center the largest world breaker ever built. Its cannons pulsed with energy, each one capable of erasing a city. Its shadow stretched across the dying light of the star, and the galaxy trembled. Commander Rilo stood at the prow of that behemoth, his voice filled with venom. Humans thought themselves strong, but today their ashes will feed this star. His fleet spread across the void, surrounding the Terrans, confident that numbers would crush steel. But Hale did not flinch, his voice carried across the comms. Calm and certain, they think numbers are strength. Show them what discipline means. And the dreadnoughts moved. The battle began with silence, a silence so deep it felt eternal then in a single breath. It erupted. Railguns thundered, beams slashed, missiles streaked across the void, and fighters swarmed like storms of steel. The dying star painted it all in red light. The battlefield became an ocean of fire. At first the Alphas pressed hard, their beams carving through human cruisers. 2 ships split apart, their crews gone in seconds. But the dreadnoughts did not break. The Leviathan advanced like a mountain, its guns firing broadside after broadside, shattering Alpha formations. The Titan unleashed plasma that melted enemy battleships to slag. The Aegis raised its shields, intercepting wave after wave of energy, buying time for human fighters to tear through enemy lines. Then came the monster's roar. The Worldbreaker fired its main cannon. The beam was so bright it blinded sensors. It struck the Colossus. Tearing half its armor away, alarm screamed. Fire spread across its decks, but the Colossus did not fall. It turned, wounded but alive, and unleashed a storm of missiles that carved through 3 Alpha cruisers. The galaxy held its breath. Never had such giants clashed. Never had such fury been unleashed. Entire fleets burned in moments. The dying star's light flickered as if it too was afraid inside her fighter. Lieutenant Sarah Vance led her wing through the chaos, dodging beams, firing torpedoes. Her squadron slipped beneath the Worldbreaker's shields, planting charges on its hull. But the beast was vast, its armor like a mountain. Half her wing was lost before they could escape. Her voice cracked as she shouted, "For Earth," and detonated the charges. Explosions rippled across the Worldbreaker's side. But it still lived. Admiral Hale's voice cut through the chaos. Sharp as steel. "Focus fire, bring it down." And the dreadnoughts obeyed. Every railgun, every missile, every cannon turned on the giant. The void lit up with fury. The Worldbreaker staggered under the weight of Terran fire. Its shields cracked, its armor groaned. Commander Rylos roared in denial, forcing his fleet forward. Thousands of Alpha ships hurled themselves into the fray. The battlefield became madness, but humans fought like predators cornered. Every ship, every fighter gave everything. Dreadnoughts moved in unison, a wall of unbreakable steel. And slowly, impossibly, the tide began to turn. The Worldbreaker tried to fire again, its main cannon glowing with terrible light. But the Aegis dreadnought rammed it, sacrificing itself. Shields flaring as its hull cracked, the impact threw the Worldbreaker off aim. Its cannon misfired, ripping apart its own escorts. The Aegis died in silence, but its sacrifice gave humanity the chance. The Invictus, the Leviathan, and the Titan unleashed everything they had, their guns firing until barrels glowed red, missiles swarming like endless rain, railfire carving straight into the Worldbreaker's heart, and then, with a scream of metal, the Alpha giant split apart, its core erupted, the explosion brighter than the dying star itself. The battlefield fell into silence once more. The Alphas froze, their flagship gone, their fleet shattered. Their arrogance turned to ash, they fled, leaving wreckage and shame behind. On the bridge of the Invictus, Admiral Hale bowed his head for the fallen. The Aegis was gone, thousands of lives lost, but the price had broken the enemy. The Alphas had thrown their greatest weapon into the fire, and humanity had survived. More than survived. They had triumphed. The galaxy would never forget what it had seen. Near a dying star where arrogance met resolve, the Alphas had fallen, and the humans had turned the tide. The wreckage of the Worldbreaker still drifted near the dying star, its glowing pieces scattering across the void like burning shards of a god. The galaxy was stunned. No one had ever destroyed such a weapon. No one had ever forced the Alphas to retreat twice, but humanity had done it. And every corner of space whispered the same words. Perhaps the Alphas were not invincible after all. But in the Alpha homeworld there was no whispering, only rage. Their emperor stood before his council, his claws dripping blood from striking his own throne. His voice shook the chamber. They call themselves human. They think themselves equal to us. They have taken our fleets, our pride, our Worldbreaker, and still they breathe. This cannot stand. The command was given, a single merciless order. Summon the Armada, leave nothing of them. Erase humanity. From every Alpha-controlled system, ships were summoned. Dread fleets that had never moved before now gathered. Carriers, destroyers, cruisers, all armed and ready. Their numbers blackened entire sectors of space. When they were counted, there were millions. A swarm so large it could blot out stars. Their plan was simple. Drown the Terrans in endless fire. Crush them with sheer weight. Across the galaxy, humanity prepared. Admiral Marcus Hale knew the Alphas would not stop. He knew this next war would not be a battle, but a storm that could decide the future of all. On Earth, factories roared, shipyards burned with activity. Hidden reserves were unlocked, and every warship, from the smallest frigate to the mightiest dreadnought, was called to arms. The Invictus led the gathering fleet, its black hull glowing with scars from past battles. Beside it rose the Leviathan, the Titan, and the Colossus. Behind them, carriers like the Atlas opened their bays to endless waves of fighters. Destroyers lined up in formation. Cruisers bristled with weapons. Humanity's full strength had been awakened. Never before had so many Terran ships sailed together. The place chosen for the clash was vast, an empty system of cold stars and broken planets, a graveyard of stone where the largest battle in history would be written. Humanity's banners lit up the void, their ships forming walls of steel and fire. But even they looked small as the Alpha Armada arrived. The darkness split open, and from it poured the swarm. Endless ships, row after row, their hulls shimmering with cruel light, their guns already charged. At the center of the storm were not one but 3 new world breakers. Massive ships that made their last one look fragile. Their cannons pulsed like the hearts of stars. The galaxy shivered on the bridge of the Invictus. Admiral Hale stared at the screens, his eyes steady, his crew tense, but no one spoke of retreat. His voice cut across the comms, clear and calm. This is not just for Earth. This is for every world that has suffered under them. This is for every race that bowed their heads in fear. Today we show them humanity does not break. Cheers erupted through the comms, voices of thousands of crews, a single heartbeat of resolve. The battle began with no warning, no hesitation, just fire. The Alphas opened with a storm of beams, light so bright it cut the void apart. Human cruisers were the first to fall. Shields overwhelmed, hulls torn open, entire crews lost in silence. But before the enemy could celebrate, the Terran fleet struck back, railguns fired in perfect rhythm, missiles screamed from every direction, and swarms of fighters darted into the gaps. Shredding Alpha formations, the dreadnoughts moved like titans. The Leviathan's broadsides tore through lines of cruisers. The Titan's plasma cut an enemy battleship in half. The Colossus unleashed waves of missiles that exploded in blinding cascades. Yet even as they struck, the Alphas struck harder. Their numbers endless, their weapons relentless. Dozens of Terran destroyers fell. Even a carrier burned, its fighter wings lost in fire. But humans were not fighting for pride. They were fighting for survival. Their tactics sharp, their movements precise. Every loss was avenged, every opening exploited. Hale directed the fleet like a conductor guiding a symphony of steel. He turned weakness into traps, letting the Alphas press forward only to be swallowed by ambushes, hidden wings of ships flanking from the dark. Then the world breakers fired. 3 beams cut across the void. Entire Terran cruisers disintegrated. One beam struck the Titan dreadnought, ripping through its armor, its decks burning, its lights flickering. But the Titan endured. Scarred but alive, its guns still roared, its defiance inspiring every human ship to fight harder. In the cockpit of her fighter, Lieutenant Sarah Vance screamed into the comms, "We hold the line." Her squadron darted through fire, planting torpedoes into Alpha carriers. Explosions blossomed like stars. She lost friends, her wing torn apart, but still she fought, her craft weaving through the chaos, her determination echoing the spirit of all humanity. The battlefield became a storm of endless fury. Ships collided, weapons screamed, the void lit with fire and death. But the humans did not falter. For every ship that fell, another pressed forward. For every life lost, vengeance came in steel and fire. Hours passed and the tide began to shift. The Alphas, for all their numbers, began to stumble, their formations breaking under Terran tactics, their commanders losing control. The humans pressed forward, dreadnoughts carving paths through the swarm, carriers unleashing fresh wings of fighters, cruisers hammering the broken lines. The 3 world breakers, mighty and terrible, were still alive, but even they showed cracks, their shields dimming, their armor burning, and Admiral Hale knew the moment was coming. The humans had endured the storm. Now it was time to turn it. He opened the channel once more, his voice like a blade. This is humanity's fury. Let them feel it, and the Terran fleet roared forward. Their guns blazing, their missiles screaming, their dreadnoughts unstoppable. The Alphas had come with arrogance, with fury, with endless numbers, but humanity met them with something greater, with will, with resolve, with the fire that comes only when survival is on the line, and the galaxy would never forget the sight. Terran steel cutting through the largest armada ever gathered, proving that even millions could not break the human spirit. The Alpha Armada had shattered, their fleets scattered across the void. Wreckage burned brighter than the stars themselves. Entire formations erased by Terran steel. The humans had endured what no one thought possible. They had faced the greatest swarm ever assembled and broken it. The galaxy gasped, but Admiral Marcus Hale did not smile. He knew the war was not over until the heart of the beast was torn out. The Alpha capital still lived. It was a world of towers that pierced the skies, oceans of fire and shipyards larger than cities. It was where the Alpha Emperor ruled, surrounded by fleets and fortresses. No outsider had ever reached it. No enemy had ever dared until now. Humanity prepared the final strike. The operation whispered across the Terran fleet as one name. Retribution. The dreadnoughts were repaired. Their scars still fresh, but their guns loaded again. The Invictus led the charge, its hull patched with steel and fire. The Leviathan followed, massive as a mountain. The Titan carried its wounds proudly, its armor scorched but unbroken. Carriers like the Atlas brimmed with new wings of fighters. Cruisers lined in deadly formations. Every surviving ship of humanity's fury gathered for one last march. The fleet jumped into Alpha space, and what they saw would have broken any other race. The capital system was a fortress. Rings of defense stations surrounded the world. Orbital cannons the size of mountains pointed outward, and fleets, tens of thousands of ships, stood ready. Even in defeat, the Alphas had not grown humble. They waited with weapons charged, their banners shining like suns. Commander Rylos, scarred and furious, stood on the bridge of the new Alpha flagship, his voice a storm. This ends today. We will drown them in their own blood. We are Alpha. We are eternal. But deep inside his chest, he felt fear, a cold gnawing he had never known before. The memory of Terran dreadnoughts haunted him. The human fleet advanced without hesitation, their banners glowing against the black sky. Hale's voice echoed through every channel. Calm, steady, unshakable. This is the end of arrogance. This is the end of cruelty. Today the galaxy learns that humanity does not kneel. Today we finish what we began. The Alphas fired first. Beams of energy rained from their fortresses. Entire waves of fire cut through space. Human destroyers exploded. Cruisers broke apart. But the dreadnoughts held the line, their shields blazing, their guns returning fire. Rail rounds the size of buildings tore into orbital stations. Missiles streaked across the void, slamming into Alpha defenses. The battlefield became a storm. Thousands of ships colliding. Fighters weaving through swarms, explosions blooming like suns. The dreadnought Titan split an Alpha carrier in half. The Leviathan drove straight through a line of battleships. Its guns tearing them apart, the Invictus thundered forward, its railguns hammering at the orbital rings. But the Alphas unleashed their final horror. A fortress ship, larger than a moon, rising from the shadow of the capital. Its cannons glowed with enough power to vaporize continents. Its shields pulsed like the skin of a living god. The Alpha Emperor himself commanded it. His voice broadcast across the system, kneel, or perish in the fire of eternity. The galaxy held its breath, but humanity did not kneel. Admiral Hale raised his hand. All ships, fire everything, and the Terran fleet obeyed. Dreadnoughts poured their fury into the fortress, railguns cracking its shields, missiles bursting across its armor. Fighters swarmed like angry bees, planting charges along its vast surface. The fortress roared, beams of death slicing through the Terran fleet. Another carrier was destroyed, cruisers shattered. Even the Colossus dreadnought was struck, burning and broken, its crew refusing to abandon ship. Still firing until its last breath, their sacrifice bought humanity seconds. And seconds were enough. The Invictus, the Leviathan, and the Titan pressed forward, shields failing, hulls cracking. But still they advanced, like wolves tearing at a giant. Their guns never silent. Admiral Hale's voice cut through the chaos. For Earth, for every world they crushed. Bring it down. Inside her fighter, Lieutenant Sarah Vance led the final run, her squadron diving straight into the heart of the fortress. Torpedoes armed, alarms screaming. She whispered a prayer, then unleashed everything. Explosions ripped across the fortress's spine, weakening its shields, opening the path. The dreadnought seized the moment. The Invictus fired a broadside. The Leviathan unleashed its full rail batteries. The Titan hurled plasma into the breach. The fortress screamed as its core cracked. Light burst from within, brighter and brighter, until it tore itself apart in a supernova of fire. The Alpha Emperor's last words were silence, his pride erased in the explosion. The capital's defenses collapsed, the remaining Alpha fleet scattered, their commanders breaking, their arrogance gone. They fled into the dark, no longer conquerors, no longer eternal. The Terran fleet stood battered but unbroken, thousands lost, ships burning, but they had done the impossible. They had struck into the heart of the Alphas and destroyed it. Humanity had ended the empire that once called itself the First. On the bridge of the Invictus, Admiral Hale looked at the burning world below, his voice heavy but certain. It is over. The Alphas are no more. And across the galaxy, those words echoed, carried on every signal, whispered in every corner, feared by every tyrant. The fall of the Alphas would be remembered for eternity. The day humanity erased an empire that thought itself eternal. And in that silence, the galaxy learned a truth. Humans were not prey, humans were not weak. Humans were the storm. The Alpha capital still burned, its shattered towers glowing red against the void. Wreckage of warships drifted like broken bones. The mighty empire that once called itself the First had fallen, their emperor erased, their fleets scattered, their arrogance crushed. Silence filled the galaxy, a silence so deep it felt eternal. And in that silence, humanity stood. Admiral Marcus Hale looked out from the bridge of the Invictus, the dreadnought's hull scarred and burning but unbroken, his crew tired, bloodied yet still alive. The weight of what had been done pressed on them. The Alpha Empire, once eternal, was gone. Erased by human hands, whispers traveled faster than light, spreading across stars and stations. The Alphas are no more. The Terrans have risen. Across the galaxy, old empires stirred. Those who had lived in fear of the Alphas raised their heads for the first time. Merchants dared to sail routes once closed. Slaves whispered of freedom. Soldiers who once served unwillingly felt chains fall from their souls. The Alphas had ruled with fear, but that fear had died with their fleets, and all who watched knew one truth. Humanity had ended them, but humans did not claim thrones. They did not demand tribute when the galaxy expected them to rise as conquerors. They did not. Hale's voice echoed in every broadcast. Simple and clear. We are not Alphas, we do not rule, but we will never kneel. Humanity stands as guardian, not tyrant. Those words spread like fire. A promise and a warning on Earth. Cities lit with celebration. Children ran through streets waving banners. Families wept for those who had been lost. But their tears were mixed with pride. They had survived. They had prevailed. The Terran people had proven themselves to the stars. For centuries, humanity had looked upward with wonder. Now the galaxy looked back at them with awe. In the colonies, survivors of battles built monuments to the fallen. Statues of ships like the Aegis, which had rammed a world breaker, and the Colossus, which had died firing its last guns. Names of crews carved into stone, reminders that victory had come at a price. Humanity remembered its dead not with silence, but with honor. Meanwhile, the galaxy's rulers gathered in secret. Councils of ancient empires spoke in whispers, their voices shaking. If humans could erase the Alphas, then who could stand against them? Fear grew in the halls of power. Some wanted to ally, others to hide. None dared to challenge. Messages passed between governments carrying the same warning. Do not cross the Terrans. The Terran fleet sailed home. Battered yet unbroken, the dreadnoughts returned in triumph. Children pointed at the sky as shadows of giants passed overhead. The Invictus, the Leviathan, the Titan, living legends now, their names etched into history. Their guns silent, but their presence loud. Wherever they went, respect followed. Lieutenant Sarah Vance, once a fighter pilot, returned scarred and weary, but alive. Her name already a story told in streets and taverns. How she had led her squadron against the world breaker. How she had whispered for Earth before the charge. How she had survived against all odds. She, like so many others, became a symbol, proof that courage burned brightest in the darkest hours. And yet, even as victory filled the air, humanity did not rest. Shipyards kept building, fleets kept training, because Admiral Hale knew the galaxy, knew that somewhere in some shadow another empire would rise. Another arrogant conqueror would test them. He would not allow humanity to be caught unprepared again. He stood before the Terran High Command, his voice steady. We have shown the galaxy our strength. We have ended the Alphas, but we must remain watchful. For today they fear us, tomorrow they may test us. We are not Alpha, we are not tyrants, but we are guardians. And the guardians must always be ready. And those words became doctrine.